All right, kids, go put on your pajamas, get some snacks, grab a comfy blanket because we got a lot to talk about. There is a new player in the Powerbank game. Now, we know who the leaders are. We know Goal Zero. Goal Zero makes some amazing power banks. They've been doing it for a really long time. A lot of people love them. And then Jackery came out, and in the last few years, they've just been gaining a lot of traction. A lot of people really like Jackery, and Jackery has a much lower price point than Goal Zero stuff. And with the popularity of power banks, suddenly all these other companies are producing their own power banks, advertising it to be even cheaper. And some of them just look straight up like knockoffs off the Goal Zero and the Jackeries. But I don't know, man, when it comes to power banks, I have a really hard time trusting just some unknown company's power bank just because it's cheaper. You don't know what kind of parts they're using, and we're talking about a battery full of electric charge in just a small little package. The last thing I want is some cheap power bank to catch on fire on me or fails when I need it the most. Enter Zero Breeze. Now, if you are not aware of Zero Breeze makes amazing AC units. Like, they gave me an AC unit, I don't know, maybe last year or so, and we went summer camping, and that AC unit has been a champ. Now, with the AC unit, if you are at a campsite that has electrical, you're good to go. You just plug up the AC unit, you have AC for days. But we overland, and so we're always at places that do not have electricity. I mean, we're talking primitive camping. And then Zero Breeze sent me their battery pack that you attach to the bottom of the AC unit, which is great, but it will last maybe, when we clocked it at 95-degree weather, it was about 4.5 hours that thing lasted, and then it died. Now, you can take that AC unit and plug it up to like a Goal Zero or to like a Jackery, but depending on the capacity of that battery, you're probably going to get about the same, 4.5, 5 hours, and that's just not enough, especially when you're trying to sleep through the night and it's hot outside. So then that's when they decided, well, what if we make our own power bank? What if we make a power bank that's strong enough to power our AC units and at the same time for you to use for pretty much anything? And that's when this comes in. This is their brand new Zero Breeze ElecHive 2200. Yeah, you heard me right. 2200. That's 2200 watts, equaling to about 2500 watt hours. Like, that is a lot. Maybe down the line, I'm sure they'll offer smaller power banks with smaller capacities, but right now they wanted to provide a power bank that is able to power your AC unit for up to 14 hours, along with some other things that you might need, like a fridge. But that's pretty insane, 2200 watts. I think it's pretty safe to say that my power needs are pretty much taken care of. But yeah, let's do a deeper dive. Now, let me just say without bias, this is probably the nicest power bank I have ever seen. And I'm not over exaggerating, just like hear me out. Like, think about the Goal Zero, for example. Goal Zeros are nice, they look great, but me personally, I'm just not a fan of that bright green with the dark gray and black. Like, and I know that has nothing to do with how it performs, but it's just the look of it I'm not that big of a fan of. It just screams out too much at me. And then you have Jackery, and what I don't like about the Jackery is the function of it. Like, they molded the case around the battery, and in that mold, they created the handle. The handle is built into the unit itself. You can't put things on top of it. You can't put it on top of something else. It gets a little too heavy, and it becomes like, it has this awkward shape when you're trying to store it in the back of your rig. This is just a straight box. Everything about this is function. In fact, the handles on here, they're already built directly into the unit itself. So you just grab it and go, and nothing is protruding at the top that makes it hard to store away. All of your outputs are like right in the front. Like there's none on the side. Like you're not gonna see like a plug on here or a plug on there. Some of the other power banks, when you have like a port on the side or a flashlight on the side, when you have something plugged in, well, what if you had stuff next to this? Now you gotta move the power bank around just to get to that plug. And then to charge the unit back up, a lot of power banks have that in the front as well. So now you have this cord coming out the front and being charged up somewhere, and it just makes it so awkward. Well, all their outputs are here in the front, and then all the inputs to charge this thing back up is in the back. Like, I don't know why that's just not standard. You should be able to just charge this thing back up from the back, and then everything that you see in the front, everything you need to charge is right here, and it makes it so easy. Like, that's what I love about this unit. All right, so when you buy this unit, what are you gonna get? Well, obviously you're gonna get the unit itself. You're gonna get the user manual, which do not throw this away. This has a lot of pertinent information about every single port that's on here. You're also going to get this beefy, this humongous like AC power cord, and it has to be big. I mean, you're recharging back up a 2200 watt power bank. You're gonna need something that's pretty substantial. All their connections are Anderson connections, by the way. So I don't know if you can see that, but all their connections are Anderson connections. You're also gonna get a 12-volt socket. So if you wanna charge this in the vehicle, you're gonna get one of those. And then finally, you'll get one of these. This is a 12-volt socket adapter. You'll notice that nowhere on this unit is there a 12-volt socket, and I'll get to why they did that. But in the meantime, let's go through all the ports and I'll give you all the specs for each one. All right, so first off, to turn this unit on, you just have to hold the power button down until you hear the 2 beeps. That'll turn that on for you. Now, this screen will shut off after a while unless you have some of these ports active. So let me activate the DC port for now so that I can show you the screen. Now, over on the left, you have your input and output. Right now, it's showing 0 watts because we don't have anything plugged into this thing. And then next to output, you will see whichever of these ports are currently active. I activated the DC, so you'll see a little DC indicator there. If I were to turn on the AC, you'll see the AC indicator there as well. And in the middle, you'll have your battery indicator. Right now, this is at 69%. Even at 69%, it's not full. I still have 1,780 watt hours left on this thing. And with the way it is, hours to empty is 99.9 hours, which means I still have about 4 days before this thing actually empties. Now, to turn this thing off, let me just deactivate the DC, hold the power button down till you hear 1 beep, and that'll shut down for you. Now, when I first got this unit, I thought that this was a 12-volt socket, but when I opened it, I quickly realized that it was not. This is actually a 24-volt Anderson port. Now, make note that this is not for this 12-volt socket. You don't want to be plugging a 12-volt socket into a 24-volt port. In fact, the orientation is not even the same, so you couldn't even plug this in there if you wanted to. The specs for this is 19.5 to 25.2 volts, 500 watts, 25 amp max, and the protection you're going to get with it is overload protection, overcurrent protection, short circuit, over temperature, and low temperature protection. So anything that you have that has an Anderson plug that needs 24 volts, you could plug it right into that. Now, the 12-volt socket itself, that actually plugs into this port here. This is your 12-volt Anderson port. The specs for this is 10.5 to 13.4 volts, 300 watts, 25 amp max, and you're getting the same protection as you got with this one. I was wondering, why didn't they just put a 12-volt socket anywhere on here? Like, why did they give us an extension? And I realized that they want to make this as current as possible. Now, I don't know about you, but me personally, there's not a lot of stuff that I'm still using that has a 12-volt socket in it anymore. A Anderson port is a lot more versatile. If you have something that needs 12 volts and is an Anderson plug, you can plug that into there. But if you do still need to use one of these, then you could just plug this up into here, and now you have yourself a 12 volt socket for you to use. Now next to that, you have your 12 volt DC 5521 port. So anything that has a 5521 connection, you can put it into that. Specs for this one, 10.5 to 13.4 volts, 120 watts, 10 amp max, and also the same kind of protection as well. Now to the right of those, you're gonna have your USB ports. You have two USB-Cs and two USB-As. The two USB-Cs, there are a couple of differences between each of these. This first one is a USB-C bidirection full PD. This gives you 5, 9, 12, 15, and 20 volts, 100 watts, 5 amp max. But the one next to that, this is a regular USB-C 5, 9, 12, and 18 volt max. And then next to your USB-Cs, you have your standard USB-As. They're both the same, 5, 9, and 12 volts, 18 watts. And then finally, to round out the front, you have your 4 AC outlets, which is great. They give you 4 because there's a ton of stuff that I like to plug into an AC outlet. All of these are gonna give you the same kind of specs. 110 volts, 60 hertz, 2200 watts, 20 amp max continuous, or 230 volts, 50 hertz, 2200 watts, 10 amp max continuous, 4400 watt surge peak. The protection you get on these: overload, overcurrent, short circuit, over temperature, low temperature, and low voltage. Now to turn these things on is a little bit different than before. Go ahead and turn the unit on, and then to get the AC activated, you have to hold the AC button down. You can't just press it. And then you'll hear that the fan will kick on. That'll just make sure that this thing gets cooled. It'll shut down after a while, but then when it starts to get a little bit hot again, then those fans will kick back on. All right, moving over to the back, you're gonna see 4 different ports, and you're probably wondering why there's 4 ports back here. Well, 2 of them actually charge this thing back up, and then the other 2 have controls in them. This one is auto sleep. Right now it's set to on. If you set it to on, then anytime the DC ports in the front is less than 100 milliamps, or if any of the AC outlets is less than 10 watts, this thing will shut down in about 60 minutes. If you turn it to off, then anytime those DC ports, if it goes below 100 milliamps, and if any of the AC outlets goes below 10 watts, then this thing will shut off in about 12 hours. You're basically telling this unit when you want it to shut down if it's not being used. Now on the other side, you have charge and discharge. You can choose between 90% and 100%. Right now I have it at 90%. What that means is you're telling this unit, do you want this thing to get charged all the way up to 100% of its battery, or only up to 90% of this battery? And then when you drain it, do you want to drain it all the way down to 0, or do you want to only drain 90% of the battery's capacity? Now you might be wondering, well, why would you choose 90% and only charge this battery up to 90%? Well, doing it that way and then only draining 90% of it will preserve the battery life. So if you want your battery to last a little bit longer, set it to 90. But if you want to take full advantage, all 100% of it, then you can go ahead and put it to 100%. I'm just going to choose to leave it at 90. Now here's where things get really interesting. What makes this ElecHive 2200 stand out from many of the other power banks that are out there? Well, remember earlier when I said that 2 of these ports are to charge this thing back up? One of them, this one, is your regular charger, and then this one is your fast charger, which means that if you were to use this port, you'll be able to charge this thing up way faster than many of the other power banks that are out in the market today. How fast exactly? Well, let's compare. If you were to use the regular charging port here, which by the way is an Anderson port, with solar open circuit voltage, you'll get 240 watts, 10 amp max, and it'll take 11 hours to full. If you were to plug it into the vehicle or plug it into a wall outlet at home, that DC charging is going to be 12 to 30 volts, 240 watts, 10 amp max, 11 hours to full as well. Now if you were to jump over to the fast charging port with solar, open circuit voltage, 30 to 75 volts, 1250 watts, 26 amp max, it'll take about 6 hours to go from 0 to full. So 6 hours compared to 11 hours, that's pretty quick. They say you can put up to 12 100 watt solar panels on this thing to charge it up. So if you wanted to, this can accept 1250 watts of input. So you can put 12, I mean, if you really wanted to, 12 100 watt solar panels out there. It would look kind of ridiculous when you're overlanding and camping, but I guess for the home, or like if you had like some sort of blackout or like a storm and you have no power, I would lay out probably 12 solar panels to keep this thing going. If you were to jump to the DC charger that gets plugged into the vehicle, 30 to 38 volts, 600 watts, 16.7 amp max, and it'll take 5 hours to go to full. So from 0 to 100, 5 hours compared to, again, 11 hours. So you're gaining like 6 hours. So if you're going trailing or you're going off-roading and you're traveling and you're on the road for 5 hours before you get to your next campsite, this thing will be charged back up by the time you get there. If you were to charge this up at home though, so let's say you utilize this on your trip, it's down to 0, you get home, you want to get this thing charged back up. DC charger, 42 to 60 volt, 1250 watts, 26 amp max, 2.5 hours to full. 2.5 hours to full. You'll get this thing back to 100% in just 2.5 hours. That's pretty quick. So we talked about the ports. We talked about the specs for each port, what kind of power each of these ports are giving out. And then we talked about charging this thing back up, regular charging and fast charging. And then we also talked about the different ways of charging this back up. So you have your vehicular one right here, 12 volt socket, plug this into the vehicle. And then you have your wall outlet, which is an AC outlet that converts it to DC. And then the last way you can charge this thing back up is through solar. And charging it through solar, even if it's a humongous capacity power bank, if you have ample sunshine, and in Florida we have that a lot, take advantage. Like, yeah, this thing won't drain for a while, but if you can keep it topped off, why not? So if you have solar panels available, plug it up. As long as it's an Anderson port, you'll be able to plug it right into the regular or the fast charging and be able to get this thing charged back up. However, if you don't want to buy or if you don't have a solar panel already, well, guess what? Zero Breeze offers their own solar panels. These are 100 watt solar panels. Matter of fact, let me clear some of this stuff out and let me show these to you. So here is a Zero Breeze solar panel. Each of these are 100 watts. Standard solar panel that kind of folds up. I'm glad that they went with this route versus like the hard kind, because I thought they were going to do the harder kind, like the ones that's rigid, which would have been fine, but I would have had to mount it on a roof rack or something. This just makes it a little bit easier to transport around. And I also like that they didn't do the roll-up kind either. You have your Velcro stands here, one on this side and then one on that side, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then you have a pocket here that has your connectors. So if you were to open this thing up, your connections are right inside. These are your solar connectors. The only thing that I noticed that this one doesn't have that my Jackery one has are USB ports right here. Some of the solar panels have USB ports so you can plug your phone and your tablet directly to the solar panel without going to like your power bank and then just use solar to charge up your devices. But I've never used it. I have other smaller battery banks or smaller solar chargers that I use for that. So the fact that this doesn't have a USB port on it, it's not a big deal. So to set this thing up, you basically take the connectors here and then you take the connectors they give you. This is the adapter that has the Anderson port on the other side. And then you put this one here. And then now you have a connection here, and this goes directly to your ElecHive 2200, or you can go get another adapter that will allow you to put this directly to your AC unit if you have one. So even if you don't get the ElecHive, you could still buy the Zero Breeze solar panel and charge your AC that way. All right, and finally, if you're gonna set this thing up, just take the Velcro from each end, deploy the legs, and you'll be able to open this up and stand it somewhere. And there you go. That's the solar panel, 100 watts, compacts down to, this looks like it would be about, I don't know, 2 feet by 2 feet, around there, I think it is. All right, just a couple pieces of specs. Capacity, 2500 watts. Cell chemistry, this is an NMC battery, which is a lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt oxide battery. Recharging temperature, 14 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Operating temperature is -4 degrees to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Shelf life, more than 2 years after fully charged. The lifespan is 1,000 cycles. After that 1,000 cycles, it'll drop down to 80% capacity of the battery. Weight, 40 pounds, pretty heavy. Size, 12.9 inches by 9.6 inches by 11.3 inches. And then storage temperature, -40 degrees to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, you'll be okay. And humidity, less than 95% humidity, and you should be pretty good. And that'll keep this thing nice and working for a long time for you, just as long as you take care of it. Now, when it comes to power banks, the rule of thumb is usually $1 per watt hour, and you could check that with other battery packs and battery banks, and you'll see that like a 500 watt hour power bank is going to cost about 500 bucks. Well, 2500 watt hours, regular price for this is $24.99, so it falls in that range. Right now, however, because this is so new and they're trying to push it, they're selling this right now for $2,199. So you're getting 500 bucks off. So if you want to be one of the first people to have one of these, take advantage of that sale right now because it's going for $2,199. I have an affiliate link below. You don't have to use my affiliate links. I mean, it's going to be the same price no matter what, but I'm just asking if you can use my affiliate links below. That way it kind of helps fuel this channel as well. I don't get much, but at least I'll get something. So follow my links below if you want to purchase one of these. I want to thank Zero Breeze for sending this over and for continuing to believe in this channel. Like, I cannot wait to take this out and see how long it'll last us during those 3 to 4 day trips that we sometimes take over the weekend. Plus, this is going to be really great as well during hurricane season, especially when power goes out and we have no way of powering anything in our house. This will come in really, really handy. Next week, we're going to talk about power banks and different power banks, what's right for you. So stick around for that. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and also consider supporting us on Patreon so we can continue to make more content like this. And as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Baptism Overland. My name is Asia Sampson, and I will see you next time. I really did not think it would be possible for my throat to hurt from talking so much. Ah, ah, ah.